excited to do this and talk
me
with
too.
you. And we're like
so
neighbors.
I know.
Thank you so much for talking with me. I've been following your career for a long time, and your personality just jumps out off the screen. So that's really why I wanted to talk to you.
Thank you.
But let's start at the beginning like we usually do. You're from SoCal originally, right? Tell me about that in your childhood.
Yeah, so I was born in Pasadena, but I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley in Glendora, California. They call us the Glendorables. And my upbringing is not what you would think. I think when people look at me, they think, oh, stereotypical, like Valley girl, maybe a little privileged. But I was actually raised by my maternal grandparents.
Wow.
My mom is Mexican, so I was raised by my Mexican grandparents in the San Gabriel Valley, and it was an amazing childhood. So when I say my hometown is Glendora, that's because my family still lives there. That's where I went to high school. But I also lived in Victorville for a little bit in Spring Valley Lake. So I lived in the high desert as a child as well. So I've lived in the desert. Glendora is kind of like a mountainous region. And then now I'm at the beach. So I feel like I have like the trifecta of like a true SoCal native.
If you don't mind me asking, what's the reason behind being raised by your grandparents?
Yeah, so my mom and my dad had me very young. My mom was 18 years old when she had me. She was not really in a position to be raising a child. She was a child herself. And my dad also was, very young. He went off to college. So it was kind of just talked about and discussed that it would be the best situation for me to be raised by my grandparents. And my grandparents are very young. People always thought they were my parents growing up. So they were amazing grandparents. They put me in like literally everything to see like what I was good at. So I was in everything from like Girl Scouts to ballet to hip hop, T-ball, which that ended in a fiery flame. But so we had a great I had a great relationship with them. I still do. And I'm still like very close with my mom as well. But my mom, shortly after I kind of went off with my grandparents when I was young, my mom got married to the son of the former prime minister of Lebanon.
Wow.
Yeah, and she moved with my stepdad to Saudi Arabia. So my mom lived in Saudi Arabia for a majority of my childhood. And my father is actually the son of, or well, I guess I should say, wildest Neff is a very famous architect in the San Gabriel Valley area back in like the silent film days.
Okay.
He kind of popularized, like when you think of like a SoCal home, you think of a Spanish style home. And my great-grandfather, Wallace Neff, popularized that.
Wow.
So he's really well known in that area. And obviously that's my dad's side. But my dad went off to college and I pretty much lost any communication with that side of my family. So I had like a very interesting upbringing, but I definitely credit my grandparents for my work ethic and my dedication to working hard and never giving up. It definitely stems from them.
Are you an only child as well?
Yeah, so I am an only child, but my mom, when she married my former stepdad, that was the son of the former prime minister of Lebanon, they had 2 kids together. So I have 2 half-brothers on my mom's side. And then on my dad's side, I have a half-brother and sister.
Okay, so similar to me. So I grew up as an only child, but I do have 2 half-sisters as well. That makes me think, as someone who is or grew up as an only child, you had to gain a lot of independence. And I'm sure that was amplified even further being raised by your grandparents. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to have like a good imagination if you are an only child. You're like entertaining yourself. Like it gets kind of lonely. So you got to get creative. Like, okay, I'm going to sketch myself out of chalk on this sidewalk. Like, you're playing by yourself.
Exactly.
But also it helps you to not rely on other people. I think that's a skill you develop very young. And so for me, I feel like I've carried that throughout my life where I'm very independent. And I think a lot of people lack that. So it's like a very amazing quality to have.
And you did a bunch of things, you said, as a child. You seem like you were also a creative child as well. Did you always want to be a journalist? How did that how did you become inspired to go into journalism?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I loved gossip. Even in like kindergarten, I would create like little newspapers at school with like the latest gossip, like, oh, Ashley Frand got married to Brandon Staples today. It was spotted by sources on the playground. And I would write these out and I would pass them out in class like they were a newspaper. I don't think anybody got a kick out of them the way that I did, but it was something that I always loved. I loved to be like the storyteller or the one to relay the information. So I knew pretty early on that I wanted to be in some kind of news capacity.
You were like the true Harriet the Spy.
Yeah, exactly. I love that movie.
So when did you decide, hey, I'm going to study this and go into this professionally?
Yeah, so right after I graduated high school, I knew I wanted to be an entertainment reporter. I knew that I didn't want to do like general assignment reporting. I've always loved pop culture. Just growing up as a millennial, I loved Britney Spears. I loved Christina Aguilera, all the boy bands. I loved reading about them. And I knew that was where I wanted to be. So right after I graduated high school, I first went to community college. And then from there, I went to the University of Laverne, where I got my degree in broadcast journalism.
And how did TMZ happen?
Yeah, so I will say, I don't know if it was like this for you, Stephanie, but when you graduate college, it is so normalized but not spoken about that you don't get a job right out of college.
No,
At
talk
least it
about
wasn't
that.
For me, like, I didn't get a job in the industry that I wanted to be in for like a good 3 years after college. And so, I've always been a girl with a plan. I've always known like what I wanted to do, but it was like, how do I get there? So, I was the first person in my family to graduate college. So I already felt like a lot of pressure to get a job in the industry, especially when my grandparents just helped pay for my college. I'm like, I got to show them like, your money was worth it.
Yes.
And so right after college, I went for job interviews just as like a PA at Access Hollywood and Entertainment Tonight, E! News, which was always my dream. And I wasn't getting these jobs and I was just very discouraged. And I think that time between college and actually getting your career job, that time really weeds out the people that just don't have what it takes in the industry. It'll test your passion. It'll test your work ethic. And so eventually I was on the phone with a friend feeling very discouraged. And I said, you know what, like all these places, they're asking for experience. Here I'm trying to get the job for the experience, but, they're asking me, what is your experience? And college isn't cutting it. So at this point, it's not even about the money. It's about me just getting my feet wet. Mm-hmm. So I was talking to a friend and I said, I'm thinking of just creating my own entertainment blog, just so I can get into the news headspace and start writing stories. And that was as far as the idea was developed at that moment. Shortly after, he called me back and he's like, Charlie, everything happens for a reason. I have a friend that just called me. She's producing a show on the Logo Network with a bunch of comedians like Alec Mappa, Lonnie Love, and they're looking for guest hosts, entertainment reporters to come on the show and just talk about funny news stories. And he's like, I recommended you. I said, you have your own entertainment blog. And I'm like, okay, this blog doesn't exist yet. But obviously, I think success is when luck kind of meets preparedness. So I'm like, okay, this is the luck moment. I got to get prepared. Yes. So I just put together my own blog, very janky. I called it Popinions, which I was trying to go like opinions, but like it's super stupid looking back. But so they ended up giving me a bunch of guest roles on this show, which was in front of a live studio audience. I just came on with the comedians, talked about different stories. And so I that was my first gig right out of college. But what ended up happening was because I had this entertainment blog that I was now writing for, I was able to get media credentials. And so now this blog was putting me on the red carpet. I'm interviewing celebrities that I've never seen or met before. I have a couple girlfriends just filming me, taking photos of me. I'm getting them into the party after. And one day I was at the Playboy Mansion covering an event there. And this was the time that Hugh Hefner was still alive. And when he would come out at a party, it was a really big deal. You know, he'd wave to the crowd, be in his like red robe, exactly what you would imagine. And he'd have all the gaggle of girls around him, and everyone would stand, cheer, they take photos of him. So in the moment, I took some photos of him, and I didn't think anything of it because everyone else did. But what I noticed is because I was writing for this blog, I was in a news mindset. So I knew at the time that Hugh Hefner was technically single. And what just happened in the news a couple weeks before was that his ex-fiance, who he later married, it was Crystal Harris at the time, she had left him. They had a really nasty breakup. But when I was taking these photos, I noticed she was there with him at the party. So I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they got back together. Took a couple photos, went on with my night, had a great time. Next morning, I woke up. I'm like, I wonder if anyone reported on them being back together. I went online, nobody had. And I was like, holy cow, this is a window of opportunity. Who do I sell these photos to? So immediately I thought of TMZ. So I went on TMZ, called up their tip line, told them about the photos I had, gave them a bunch of details, and I sold my photos to them. And that was like the first time I kind of worked with TMZ. Wow. I never had thought about TMZ before then. I always imagined myself somewhere where they do hair and makeup and get you cute outfits, you know? And TMZ was a little more casual. But then a couple weeks went by after that story went up on their site, and I was like, I have nothing else going on. I might as well just shoot my shot. So I reached back out to that reporter that I sold the photos to, and I said, you know, if you have anything open up on the news desk, let me know. I have experience because I've had this entertainment blog for the past 6 months. I've interviewed these people. I obviously know how to get a story because you guys just did one of mine just recently. And basically they were like, you start Monday.
Wow.
And I've been there ever since.
Gosh, you've mentioned so many good points. I'm so happy you talked about the difficulties of getting your first job after college.
Yeah.
I literally got locked in an elevator on the way up to trying to give my resume to E! News.
Oh my gosh.
How much and how hungry I was to work at E! Entertainment. Literally getting in the elevator, and you need one of those like key cards to actually get up there. But I didn't have one. I was like, I just need to get my interview. I need to get my resume to them. And they're like, do you have your key card? Like all these people were in the elevator with me. And I'm like, no.
I love your determination though. I think that's like kind of like a common thread in like the fabric of being a reporter is we all share determination and we all are down to grind, you know, and get where we need to be because we are so passionate. So I think we all kind of share similar attributes.
The other point that you made that was such a great point was you talked about faking it until you make it.
Absolutely.
And I think that is so important. And I don't feel like it's discussed enough that sometimes you just need to act the part to get the part.
There were times when I had my own entertainment blog that I would get denied to an event because, you know, you're applying for credentials, you're telling them what company you work for. Nobody knows what my company is called. So there would be times that I would be denied, but I would be like, I really want to go to this event. So there was a few times that I would say, you know what? I'm just going to show up. What are they going to do? Turn me away? Okay. Then I just go home. So there were several times where I would get ready. I'd show up. I would just stand there on the red carpet, look the part, and no one questioned anything. And I was able to get the interviews and still be there on the red carpet doing the interviews that I was looking to do. And even when I would do the interviews, I had this microphone that literally did not work. It was a prop just to look the part, the fake it till you make it. And, you know, I would even like be doing this, you know, hey, is this on kind of thing. And the girl that would be filming me and then a friend that would be taking photos of me, it looked like we were like a part of a news team. But in reality, these were a couple girlfriends that I promised them, like, look, you do these things for me and I'll get you into the party of wherever the event is going to. And we would just have a good time. And that was kind of like the deal that we had. And it was absolutely a fake it till you make it moment. I still feel like I'm faking it now. I think because of that mindset, I still feel like I'm in that zone.
Oh, we're always in this imposter syndrome zone. Yeah. Why do we do that to ourselves?
I know.
Men never do that. Right. Men feel like they're so qualified when they have even less experience.
So true. So true.
So tell me about getting that call that you are going to work at TMZ.
I remember where I was. It's like the Michael Jackson effect, where you know where you were when you heard he passed away. I was to try to make ends meet during the time between graduating college and, you know, getting a job in the industry. I was doing a million things, right? I was working for myself on my blog, which wasn't making me any money, but was helping me get to where I needed to be. But I was doing things like promo modeling, catalog modeling, bartending. I did bottle service as well. I did a bunch of things just to make it so that I'm not going home with my tail between my legs back to my grandparents' house. So at the time, I was at an expo in Vegas working as a promo model, and I was telling all the other models, I was like, yeah, I just told TMZ that I really want to work there, and all the girls were like rooting for me. And I remember I got a call there on my break that they wanted me to come in on Monday, and that I was going to be potentially starting a trial on the news desk, which would be lasting a couple of weeks. They could renew me for a trial and then ultimately give me a contract. But I was so excited, you know, and I wasn't even thinking about being on the TV shows. I was just thinking like, wow, like I finally got a job in the industry and it's exciting, but at the same time, it's like, it's one thing to get the job. It's another thing to keep the job. So I was just kind of like, I am going to do whatever it takes to make sure that they don't forget me and they want to keep me.
And what was your first actual position at TMZ? Because I'm assuming you started growing the ladder in the actual company itself.
Totally. So I started off as a production assistant on the news desk. So exactly what I do now is what I did when I first started. They, you know, throw you into the fire and it's like, get stories on celebrities. And here I am like, I don't know any celebrities. I can't just look at my phone and call up, you know, so-and-so Shaquille O'Neal or something, you know. Of course, I had interviewed a bunch of celebrities, but I didn't have their numbers in my phone. And, you know, when I started, it was about 12 years ago. This was the height of TMZ's popularity. And some of the reporters I worked with on the news desk broke stories that I was just like, wow, I can't even imagine myself ever being at that level. They were so impressive to me and inspiring as well. So when I first started, I didn't know anybody, you know, but what I did know is that if I kept going to these events, which I had become privy to, I knew that I would see celebrities in person. So that's exactly what I kept doing. I would go to these events, and instead of, you know, interviewing celebrities for opinions, now I'm marching up to people and being like, hey, I loved you on TMZ Live a year ago. I loved how you said this. I'm Charlie. I work at TMZ. Let me get your number. So then now I'm starting to network. And I think what really changed the game for me was when I learned that a contact isn't just a celebrity or a publicist, because I thought that's all it was, which cool, you know, I'm making friends with celebrities, you know, but I was worried like, oh, all the people here already talk to every big publicist in town. But when I learned that literally a source could be your local garbage man that is doing his regular route that day and just so happens to see police outside of Justin Bieber's home.
Yes.
You know, like it could be anybody. So at that point I was like, well, dang, I know everybody in town. I'm from here. So then I started working that where I was like, I'm letting everybody know I'm the blonde girl at TMZ to call me. And I think that was what really changed the game for me.
That's so smart. So who is the most famous person in your phone now?
Oh, Paris Hilton is in my phone. I feel like there's probably other people that are in my phone that maybe others would be way more impressed by. But I am a millennial. I loved Paris Hilton growing up. So for me, that was like the coolest. And she is the coolest chick I've ever met. When I used to do bottle service, there was a time, this is obviously before I worked at TMZ, there was a time where Paris Hilton came to my table, and I was her bottle service girl. And this was at the height of her fame where, I mean, she was running this town.
Yeah.
And she came in with her entourage. And when you see Paris in person, she has this aura about her that it's like, she was meant to be a celebrity. Everyone's trying to get photos of her, trying to touch her, trying to just get a glimpse of her, you know, heavy security. And here she is at my table. And I'll never forget, she looked at me and I'm like, hey, can I get you anything? Like, you know, champagne, whatever. And she's like, oh, can you get me a tequila? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I did not know what I was doing, but I poured her a little shot of tequila, gave it to her. And she's like, do you mind chilling it for me? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, how do I chill this thing right now? So I literally just put it in like ice and let it sit there for like a good 10 minutes. And then finally I gave it to her. She like takes the shot, throws it back, and she goes, thank you so much. And then she grabs my hand and pulls me up to the couch that was there at the table. So now her and I are both standing on the couch and she's like, let's dance. And so her and I started dancing at this table. All the people are watching us and I'm like, what is my life right now that I am dancing with Paris Hilton? So flash forward to me getting a job at TMZ. I started seeing her out at events. And I was a little nervous to like approach her, you know, but eventually I did and we became friendly. And, you know, I just saw her about a month ago at this Los Angeles Magazine event and she always like remembers my name. And I'm like, she could easily forget who I am. Right. But I think she goes out of her way to remember people and take pictures with anybody. And it would just be easy for her to just be like, oh, I gotta go, you know, or whatever. But she always makes sure to engage with every single person that wants to talk to her.
Did you ever bring up that moment after the fact to her?
You know what? I haven't told her.
Oh my goodness.
I should, but it's something I've talked about on the show before.
Yeah.
And I do remember she tipped me very well too. So
that's always a plus.
Yes.
So do you remember your first day on air at TMZ?
Yes. So I remember they were looking to just fill in a spot on the show, and somebody in the back, I believe it was Evan Rosenblum, who was one of our executive producers at the time, he had said, what about Charlie Neff? And so they put me in, and I think at the time I was pitching one of my stories. I believe it was about like Grumpy Cat at the time. And when I first started talking, I was pitching it in my usual voice, which I've now learned I have a very thick Valley Girl accent. I never knew that growing up because everybody talks like this that I hang out with and I've grown up with. But so I started pitching it in front of Harvey and everybody, and Harvey just started busting up and he's like, your voice. And I'm like, what? And he was like, you are. And I'm like, a Valley Girl? And so that was kind of like the first breakout moment that I had on the show was, and I think from then on, you know, it coined me as like the Valley Girl on TMZ.
Yeah. I've interviewed Harvey a couple of times, but I want your perspective. What is it like working with Harvey?
Man, he is the hardest working person I've ever met in my life. He is so rich. He could easily retire, be on a yacht in Saint-Tropez, living his best life and getting a tan. But he is the first person to come in the office every morning. He's the last person to leave. He's not afraid or not too cool to get on the phone and make calls and help getting stories. And just the way he talks to people, the way he writes, the questions that he asks people when he's interviewing them is something that I've really admired, and it helped shape me to be the reporter that I am today.
For those that think that TMZ is this tabloid fodder kind of organization, what would be your response to that?
Yeah, I just don't see it like that. Maybe because I work there, so I just see us trying so hard to triple confirm things. I know the people we talk to, and it's always credible sources. And I think maybe TMZ was viewed kind of like that in the beginning, and that reputation people still think of because of the past. But I think TMZ has done a really good job over, especially the time that I've been there, as being the top trusted source in media. I mean, when we break a story about someone passing away, I don't think anyone goes, "Is that true?" I think people think, well, TMZ broke it. It's definitely true. And I feel a lot of responsibility and also gratefulness that I could be a part of a team that breaks the biggest stories in the fastest time, but in an accurate way as well.
And you bring up another good point. Accuracy versus quickness.
Yeah.
And there is that balance there. What's your take at TMZ? Because you guys get stuff out way before other people do, but then there is that challenge of making sure that it's accurate.
Totally. I mean, my favorite part of the job is breaking news. It is, and I think everyone else on the news desk could agree with that too. Because, we all work on our own stories. Like, I'll come in and I'll have a story idea, and, that's what I'm going to be calling on today. But let's say I answer the tip line and someone anonymously calls and says, so-and-so just passed away. At that point, the newsroom gets loud. We're all yelling to each other. We're making 100 calls to try to confirm this because, we could easily just be like, interesting. What should we do? No, that's not how we're going to win the story. To win the story, we got to be extremely speedy. We're in the business of communication. We got to communicate to each other very effectively. And, we're rushing because there is other competition out there, but, and we are well trained to make sure to get the story up as fast as possible.
And unlike other traditional news organizations and entertainment organizations like E! Entertainment or Entertainment Tonight, that I feel are a little more geared toward Gen Z or millennials or younger generations, I feel like TMZ is palatable for everybody. And I don't know if it's that casual feel, but I would love your take, because I feel like TMZ in its own, a lot of the population loves watching.
Yeah, I think what kind of sets us apart from everybody else is that we're really relatable.
Yeah.
I kind of mentioned that when I first had an idea of where I wanted to work, I thought about I want somewhere that does hair and makeup and puts you in cute outfits. But now we're in the land of transparency. Those people aren't as relatable to us anymore. And TMZ, was really ahead of its time. They had people on the show that their hair was back. They came in pajamas, and everyone's relatable to your everyday person. It's not these coming up next on TM. No, it's more like, oh my God, you're not going to believe what happened. It's a conversation. Also, the kind of stories that we do, it's not just entertainment news. It's like a broader, it's pop culture. It's, during COVID, we, weren't just covering your typical entertainment news stories. We're covering things that are happening in our world. And, news is news. It doesn't need to just be entertainment news. And I think during COVID, that really did set us apart from everyone else because, when you're filming these entertainment shows, their content comes from red carpet events. Well, guess what? During COVID, there was no red carpet events. So what is their show containing? But for TMZ, we didn't really skip a beat because we don't rely on red carpet events for our coverage. We cover what's happening in in the world right now. So we were still able to cover current events, and it really set us apart from everyone.
That is so true, because I interviewed Harvey Levin once about aliens.
Yeah, our specials.
Yes, your
loves
specials.
those alien stories.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you guys have done breaking news and other types of topics that aren't necessarily just entertainment related. They are pop culture related, like you said.
Yeah, totally. And of course, we do stick with what we are known for, right? Like Justin Bieber stuff. Like we just had a Justin Bieber documentary called TMZ Investigates What Happened to Justin Bieber,
Yes.
which I was featured in as well. And so, we do stick with our regular stuff where we have amazing sources. But if it's interesting to you, it's probably interesting to everyone else. There was that story in Thailand about those boys that went missing in the rainforest. I think it was Thailand. And we did like a whole special on it where we sent somebody to go interview the locals there and talk to them. And that special did amazing because people were so interested in that topic. So I think TMZ, that's how we've evolved, right? Is, all the other shows really aren't evolving. They're kind of sticking to what they know, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but just the world is changing and what people's interests are is also changing.
Is there a story that sticks out in your mind that you've broke?
Yeah, I broke Matthew Perry's death, which is a very sad story. And, obviously it was one of those where I wanted to make sure I was extremely accurate on what I was reporting because of the sensitive content involving that story. But for me, as well as a reporter, and I'm sure you can relate to this, it was really career changing for me in the sense that, for so long I would go out and make contacts, and there would be a lot of times where I would be calling contacts about a story. But in this specific story, somebody called me, and it ended up being the biggest story that we broke on the website that year. Again, very sad story to be the case, but it was a shocking, sad event that had occurred, and but for me, again, in that moment, it was memorable because I was like, wow, that person that called me could have called anybody, any reporter in the world, but instead they thought, I'm going to call Charlie from TMZ. I know she'll do this in the appropriate way.
Yeah, how does that feel as someone who was out there hustling, making all these calls, and now somebody called you?
Yeah, it feels like I did something right. Also that I've earned a reputation of, I think there's a lot of reporters out there. I don't even know if I would call them reporters, but there's a lot of people out there that will get information and they'll deliver it in not a great way. And for me, I've always tried to be a fair reporter, especially if I'm like working with someone. I want to work with them again. So I'm not trying to burn my sources or make them feel like, wow, I gave them that information and that's what they ended up doing with it. So for me over the years, being very particular about how I'm presenting the stories that I have, I felt like this person recognized that and was like, I know Charlie from TMZ is going to make sure that this story is done the right way.
And in which way did you break this news first? Was it with the web story?
Yeah, so I work for the website. So I broke it on the website. The day that it happened was on a weekend. I remember I was at a trunk Halloween candy show, car show thing. I didn't even know this was a thing, but I was with my husband's family in Glendora, and there was this like car show, but they open their trunk and there's like a bunch of candy and you trick or treat.
Yes.
I
have a 3-year-old, I know.
Okay. But so I was at that when I got the call that he had passed away. I immediately knew it was true, given who the person was. And I, at that point, looped in our news desk. And, we're all trying to be speedy. We're not working,
right.
So everyone was involved. And I think, a short amount of time after we broke the story on the website.
My colleague loves to tell me that the Matthew Perry death happened on the weekend because he was working that day.
Oh,
and he likes to bring it up all the time. He's like, well, you weren't working the weekend.
I feel like the biggest stories happen on the weekend.
They really do.
Paul Walker passed away on a weekend. And, usually for news staff, there's like kind of a skeleton crew that's on the weekends. So, yeah, it can really test your passion on the weekend.
You also broke the Beyonce, Jay-Z, Solange elevator altercation that happened, right?
Yes, that was another big story that I broke, which I don't even feel like when I first saw the video before I looped in everybody, I was like, I couldn't believe it was real. But I was like, this is going to break the internet. Like, I immediately knew it was going to be something that was going to be a massive talking point. So that was one thing that I broke. But I think because of we had to be so speedy about getting it up on the site, there wasn't really a moment to react. And I think that kind of comes with like big stories. There's no time to be like, hey, great job on that. You know, you are just there trying to get things up as fast as you can. But yeah, I broke Beyonce and Jay-Z elevator video. One weekend I was working with Harvey, and together we worked on Justin Bieber getting engaged. We broke that story. I broke Kylie Jenner's first pregnancy story. Probably a bunch of other ones that would excite you, but it's been a wild ride.
Kylie Jenner's first pregnancy story. What happened there?
Yeah, it was just one of those things where I had known about it for a while, but couldn't do the story because, like I mentioned earlier, we're consistently trying to confirm things, double confirm things, triple confirm things. And, with a pregnancy or with a marriage, with a death, you can't be wrong about those things.
Yes.
You have to be absolutely sure. And even though I was sure, I was still a little hesitant. But eventually I had another person call me telling me that she was indeed pregnant. And then there was a couple other people in the newsroom that came forward and they were like, yeah, we've heard it as well. So then we did that story.
For those that want to get into entertainment news, what would be your best piece of advice?
I would say open your mind up to other options of a job. I think for me, I was so tunnel vision about where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do that maybe I wasn't looking elsewhere that could have still gotten me to where I needed to be. Like I mentioned, TMZ wasn't somewhere that I had envisioned myself at. But once it did present itself, then I was like, what am I waiting for? I have nothing else going on. So I would suggest to look at all avenues that will help you still get to where you want to be in the end.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Is it crazy to think that you've been now at TMZ over 12 years?
I know. It's insane. I look at old clips of myself and I'm like, oh my God, thank God for my glow up. It's been such a wild ride. Like I mentioned, I've worked on so many big stories. I, worked on even the Donald Sterling story, and I was just a PA at that time. So I was really thrown into an environment where things were happening and, we were really making a difference. And I'm so grateful to be a part of a team that is extremely hardworking, and I work with people that I admire. And it's been such a great experience.
I always tell young journalists to try to get your foot in the door, and then you can maneuver into the position that you want. And I feel like you're a testament to that.
Thank you.
Just how has it been going from PA and then moving into that position that you want at TMZ?
It's been such a wild ride. So I first started off just as a PA on the news desk, but now I'm a senior news producer on the news desk. So technically the job is exactly the same. If there was another PA on the news desk that came on, they would be essentially doing the same thing that I do now. But I think starting off then and where I am now is such a huge difference. Like the contacts I have now and the stories I have under my belt is only something I could have dreamt of when I first started.
And I think that is a really great point in that sometimes just staying at a company allows you to develop your job, your personality, your sources, like everything just starts to build. And sometimes there is, a good reason to stay within the same exact company,
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone kind of thinks like, am I here too long? Is this a stepping stone? Do I want to stay here? For me, what I really loved about TMZ is, I think you probably could relate to this. When I was in college, I was kind of told like, hey, if you want to be a reporter, you're going to have to change your voice. And, of course, there's like reporter voice.
Oh my gosh, I've been told this so many times.
Yeah.
We both have higher pitched voices. So, gosh, go on this.
But when I started at TMZ, and I was first thrown onto the show, they were like, pitch it like you would talk to a friend. Yes. And so at that point, I was like, okay, I'm just going to be myself.
Be yourself.
And it was like, hey, so we got Paris Hilton last night, talking like I would be talking to you. And they really embrace people's individuality there. And I felt like I could be myself, but also do what I love. And for me, that was like a big selling point where I didn't have to change my whole vibe. I didn't have to come in wearing like a professional suit or anything. I could just literally come in like a Spice Girls sweatshirt and be myself. And it sounds so silly, but, it was definitely a big selling point for me.
One other thing I want to ask you is, like I said earlier, your personality just jumps off the screen. You're very charismatic.
Thank you.
Did that always come natural to you, or did you have to work on that?
I've always been outgoing. I've always been bubbly, and in like elementary, I would get people together and I'm like, does anyone want to get married? I will ordain you. So like I was always very much a social butterfly. But like I kind of mentioned at TMZ, when I found out I could really be myself, I didn't have to be this like cookie cutter reporter. I was like, okay, well, I'm really just going to be myself. So a lot of the opinions I have on the show are just from my life experiences, and I'm able to just really have my personality shine through.
It sounds like you really found the right fit, because if you would have went into hard news or general assignment reporting, you may have felt inclined to strip that back, but instead you went somewhere that embraced it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so grateful that that's the case. And my career is really me.
It's you.
It's not like a cookie cutter version of myself, but it's like me and my actual opinions and my real personality.
Do people watch you on air, like family and friends, and like, that's really you on TV?
Yes, because even on the show, I'll talk about like my husband or my mom, or no one's off limits. Like I'll be like, oh my God, my friend Marin, she took a flight, and when she got her bags, all her underwear was stolen. Like actual real life stories, like I will contribute on the show, and people are like, what? But I feel like every time people tell me things, like I'll remember it, but also can be like not great, because then my family will be like, why did you say that? Yeah. I'm like, sorry.
That's so funny. What have you learned about yourself in the 12 years of working at TMZ?
I think what I've learned the most is that, I think in the beginning, you're so like, this is where I want to be. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. But then you get there, and a lot of people kind of like fumble that, because it was all like fun and games in the beginning, but they don't know how to sustain. I think for me, I found a way to make myself useful and always get creative about how can I help, because I always was trying to make it so that I was like not just another reporter on the news desk, but like somebody that maybe could inspire others, or really be a person where it's like, okay, if I need help on the story, I'm going to go to Charlie because she knows what she's doing. So I think what I've learned about myself the most is that I'm relentless.
Yes.
Which is a good quality, and I'm very proud of.
Man, Charlie, I could ask you a million more questions, but I want to make sure I get to the quick fires.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. If I weren't a journalist, I would be...
I would work at an animal rescue.
Really? Really?
I love animals, but it's so hard because I like feel so much empathy for animals that it sounds bizarre. Even if I see like roadkill, like I like take a moment where I'm like actually sad.
You're like, rest in peace.
Yes, the poor little raccoon. So I would, and maybe that is something that I will pivot to later in life, but I would be working with animals in some kind of capacity.
Yeah, I always talk about being a foster failure because I used to volunteer at an animal shelter and then fostered my dog Snoopy, who you met today.
I love Snoopy.
And have had him for now almost 10 years. So
You're a great failure at that.
Your coffee order.
Tall, skinny vanilla latte with ice.
Perfect.
Yes.
Your favorite travel destination?
Oh, Kenya.
Really?
Yes, Kenya is the best place I've ever been, and I've traveled a lot. I've been very lucky that during my time at TMZ, when I first started, I hadn't even been to New York because as a SoCal native, we don't really travel. I know it's like weird, but like a lot of SoCal natives, they'll travel like within SoCal.
Yeah.
Like, you grow up going to like Newport Beach, or you grow up going to like Tahoe or Mammoth,
Right.
but there's not really that normalization to travel outside of California. So when I first started at TMZ, I hadn't even been to New York. I had a really bad breakup and I was like, you know what? I'm going to start using these vacation days that I have and I'm going to start seeing some places. So, I've been to a ton of countries, a lot of states, and definitely Kenya was the best place I've ever been. I think a big factor for me is animals, and Kenya just, of course, you can imagine, has like some of the most amazing, majestic animals ever, and you're seeing them in their natural habitat in the wild. And we stayed at Giraffe Manor, where it's like this big, beautiful mansion, and the giraffes stick their head in the windows and they eat breakfast with you in the morning. Oh my gosh, unbelievable. Highly recommend.
I want to go now.
It's amazing.
You pitched that very well. Something people often get wrong about you.
I think people would just look at me and think like, oh, she's totally a dumb valley girl, privileged. But I've come from struggle. I was raised by my Mexican grandparents, where I grew up having tamale parties and, hearing my Spanish-speaking grandparents, speak about different political topics every day. And I feel like I have like a broader view of things than just like a girl like growing up in like Laguna or something.
Do you speak Spanish?
I do, not fluently, but there's been times like my husband and I went to Colombia, and he can speak some Spanish. When you're in SoCal, you pick it up and you learn it in school too. But when we had gone to Colombia, there was areas that we were in where there's only Spanish. There's no English there. So I had to do like all the translating. And after doing like all the conjugating and stuff, I'm like, I am exhausted. But yeah.
Your favorite restaurant?
I love Great White right now.
Oh, me too.
So good. They have this like shrimp pasta that I'm all about. I'm not one of those girls that's like, oh, I don't eat this, I'm not doing this, or I eat everything.
Yes.
Pasta is definitely my go-to.
I love Great White, and I also love Playa Provisions, which is in your neck of the woods.
Mm-hmm. So good.
The last movie, TV show, or book you watched and loved?
I just wrapped up the new season of Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders.
Me too.
So good.
I finished it last night.
Were you a cheerleader in high school?
I was on dance team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So kind of similar. I was a cheerleader in high school. So it just like brings me back.
Yes.
And it's so good. Actually, last year for Halloween, our TMZ Halloween show, it's so fun. Everyone dresses up, like something pop culture from that year.
Yes.
And last year was the first season. So me and a couple girls dressed up as the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders, and we learned the Thunderstruck routine. So much fun. But yeah, second season was great.
Oh my gosh. I was just thinking about how I want to learn that routine. Like,
yeah. Yes.
A snapshot of an ordinary everyday moment that gives you true joy.
Being with my cats. I love my cats so much. I have 3 little Persian cats. They're all rescue. But yeah, I think just like being in bed with my cats is my happy place. My husband too. He can be there as well.
He's there somewhere.
Yeah, right.
Speaking of which, how did you meet your husband?
So we actually went to high school together. Shout out Glendora High School. But we didn't start dating until I was a senior. Like, we knew each other in high school, but when I was a senior and he was already graduated, we reconnected at a party. And I was like, is that Johnny Hench? Like, I couldn't believe that was him at the party because he was like glowing that night. And even my best friend was like, no, that's not him. That's like Freddie Kernowski or whatever. Like, she said it was somebody else. But then I went up to him. I knew his friend. We started chatting. We had great chemistry. And then I had to leave the party early because I was working at a tanning salon at the time. And this is, of course, like circa 2005.
Yeah.
And I told him, like, hey, I'm going to be leaving. And I didn't give him my number. Like, I left so abruptly, like a Cinderella moment where I'm like, oh, my carriage is turning into a pumpkin. And the next morning, I was at the tanning salon and he showed up to my work. Of course, I was looking like death and I was very embarrassed. He did not care, but he showed up with a strawberry smoothie for me. And the rest is kind of history.
So how long have you been with him now?
Oh, man. Well, obviously, you know, we started dating in 2005 and we were together for a good stretch during college. But then when I graduated, we both went to the same college, University of Laverne. But when I had graduated, I wanted to be in the action. I knew I wanted to be an entertainment reporter. So I wanted to get into LA. So I moved to Burbank. But my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, he was still going for his master's degree. So he was staying back. And it was just kind of like a known thing where it's like, okay, well, this long distance isn't going to work out, even though it was only really like 35 minutes.
Yeah.
We kind of just went our separate ways and weren't together, and we dated other people. He started traveling the world. I'm focusing on my career and hustling. And about 5-6 years ago, we reconnected. Our paths just brought us back to each other. I think what's meant for you won't pass you by. And he moved in. He got a job at LA Times. So he moved to my side of town at the beach. And we just went to a courthouse a couple years ago in San Francisco where it's very beautiful over there. We don't have any ties to San Francisco, but the courthouse is gorgeous. And Marilyn Monroe got married there. So I was like, if it's good for Marilyn, good enough for Marilyn, it's good enough for me. And it was just him and I and our photographer cut out everybody from the equation, and that was it.
Do you still have photos with him from your senior year of high school?
Yes, they're very cringy. They're exactly what you would imagine in that era. You know, my husband had big, spiky, bleach blonde hair, where he would wear that like necklace that had like the silver balls. Yeah. And he would wear like bright orange, like No Fear shirt. And then like I would be in like Hollister or Abercrombie where, I would layer different like tanks and have bleach blonde hair.
So funny. If you could switch lives with one person for a day, who would it be?
Ooh, I would say Barbie. I would say Barbie because Barbie literally can do any job. She is an astronaut. She is a swim instructor. She can literally do anything. She has so much hard work and determination. I really admire her. The other person would probably maybe be someone that's not living, but Lucille Ball. I've always loved Lucy. I think she's so quirky, funny, like growing up, like watching her on I Love Lucy. I was like, I like her humor. She's funny.
Yeah.
And then another person that I've always really liked as well, who is still alive, is so random, but Anna Kournikova, the tennis player. Yeah. I do like tennis, but I always thought she was like really graceful and like a cool girl. And she would have that like long braid when she would play tennis, and she was sexy but cool and athletic. She was always someone that I admired as well. So one of those.
Yeah. One thing you're deeply grateful for right now.
Ooh, deeply grateful for my health, I guess. Is that too like sad?
No, that's what I said in my last episode because it is. It's the biggest thing.
I mean, I'm at that age where I'm 38 years old. There's people that have passed away that I went to high school with. My 20-year high school reunion is this year. Wow. Where I'm like, I feel like I'm still like the girl from high school. Like, but I know I don't look like it. Don't come for me. But I just, I'm glad that I have my health, and I feel like I'm going to look pretty good at my high school reunion, I feel like. Yeah. Whereas, maybe other people aren't maybe they're not in like a position where they want to be, or life threw many curveballs at them. Not that life hasn't thrown curveballs at me as well, but I'm very grateful for my health and still being here today.
Last question, Charlie. If you could go back in time to when you first started your career, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
I would say that keep waiting, that you will still get a job in the industry. I think there was a lot of self-doubt, which is normal when you're not getting a job in the career that you want to be in. But I kept saying, like, am I not supposed to be doing this? Am I supposed to be doing this? Am I doing this right? And ultimately, I was doing the right thing. It just hadn't come as soon as I wanted it to. So I would just say, practice your patience.
Be strong, be patient.
Yes.
And it will come. Charlie, thank you so much for taking the
so
time to
much,
talk with me.
Stephanie.
Where can people follow you and watch TMZ and watch you on air?
Yeah, so I'm on both TMZ TV and TMZ Live, which is on Fox, depending on where you're at. If you're in LA, 4 p.m. is TMZ Live, 7:30 p.m. is TMZ TV, Monday through Friday. And then my Instagram, or I guess all my social handles are just at Charlie Neff.